Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're talking about tins. In fact, we're talking about the longevity of the tins. A lot of times when I share with you my prepping hauls, I'll say to you, well, this tin has a date of such and such. But I'll say to you, well, it will sit in your pantry for a good few years past that. And I had few messages, few emails as well for you guys asking me to bring the video forward and actually explain, well, how many few is for specific products. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at just that. We're going to be looking at the varieties of the tins, and I'm going to tell you roughly what sort of the time scale those tins can sit in your pantry past the best before date. First of all, okay, it's very important to understand the difference between the best before date and the use by date. Use by date is generally on a fresh produce, okay, things like a meat and a milk, and it generally will indicate the safety of consumption of that past the use by date. So for example, if you have a leg of chicken or something or any kind of meat and have a use by date by today, they'll indicate that technically, okay, the day after or a couple of days after, the meat will not be safe to consume because the bacteria might develop that will be bad for your health or cause some health implications. It not necessarily means it's always the truth because there's always a little bit of a buffer, but the use by date is there for a safety of a product. And where we're looking at the best before dates, which is generally on the tins and the other dry goods, it's there just for the quality purpose. Even if your tin or any other product will go past the best before date, it will still be safe to consume, but the quality, the texture, the amount of vitamins, minerals in there will decline over time. Another thing is out of interest, really important to know that the dates on the tins have evolved over the many years. Originally, it started about 1950, where there were certain suggestions for certain manufacturer to start putting a production date. So when the consumers purchased the tin or anything else, they roughly knew the freshness of the product, if you wish, so they can make a judgment based on that. And over the time, with the Europe getting involved, in 1980s, there were better implementation of dates. And then in the 1990s, it was pretty much a confirmed thing that all of the tins have to have the expiration or, in fact, the best before dates. So as you can see, historically, things haven't had anything on there because they knew that generally, if the tins are safe, if the tins are not dented or bulging, they will be safe to consume. So this is where we come into another thing, okay? The longevity of your tins depends a lot on how you store them and the temperature and that kind of thing. So first of all, okay, it's a no-no storing the tins that have some damage. Very small little dent in your tin, it's a-okay. But again, it depends where the dent is. So in this instance here, I have quite a big dent at the bottom here, and you can see this is where the joint of the tin is. This is a badly damaged tin, and this would not be safe to consume or actually store long term. I just would not risk it because here we have a joint, and if it's damaged, there's a potential that the oxygen will come in there and ruin the product is inside. So this is an absolute no-no. Even with a small, tiny little dent, if the dent is a little bit on the side there, I wouldn't, it wouldn't be a problem, okay? But generally, okay, if you are selecting your tins in a supermarket to put away for a long-term storage, just to make sure you do avoid the dents. And to be frank, I think I mentioned to you guys before, I have noticed a huge amount of dented tins, okay? And myself, to be frank, I've actually mistakenly picked a couple up without actually realizing. So the next thing is very important thing is actually the temperatures and the temperature fluctuations. So if you store your tins in the hot area, it just would not be suitable for a long-term storage. To be frank, I wouldn't even consider storing your tins in a really warm environment. Things like if you have a boiler room or that kind of thing where the temperature is rather high, because that it literally will affect the integrity of your tin. So I have tin in here, okay, and this is the beans, and the tin is bulging now. Okay, and again, another one of the important things, people assume that every time tin goes off, it'll bulge at the top because the seal is broken there, but it's not always the case, okay? This tin here, I can depress this on the inside, on the underneath, but it's absolutely fine on the top. So you have to make sure that you check your tins, especially if they're sitting there for a long time, on either end to make sure that they're safe to consume. So talking about the heat, okay, and also guys, the temperature fluctuation. If you have, say, if you're storing your tins in the garage, if the temperature fluctuates in the summer to like 35-40 degrees if it gets really hot, and goes to like minus something in the wintertime, that again, this is not suitable for the tins because hot and cold, okay, it doesn't really help the product inside. And I strongly suggest not to store them in a place where the temperature fluctuates a lot. Just trying to find the coolest place, coolest room, or coolest cupboard in the kitchen away from direct sunlight. And the last one, again, guys, we are talking about the pull cord versus no pull cords, right? Before I thought probably makes no difference, but again, the quality of the tins have gone down drastically. They're becoming much more thinner. And of course, on the pull top, on the pull cord there's a joint. Okay, this is how you pull it and open this. So over the time, again, that the oxygen can leak inside that, and again, a potentially deemed product unsafe. So the best way, really, if you want to maximize your time that the tins can sit in your pantry, then the best thing is actually to get the tins that don't have a pull cord on them. So taking all of this into account, so if you were to store all your tins, okay, in the perfect environment, without the pull cords, in non-temperature fluctuation area, then technically your tins will last you 10 years, 20 years, and sometimes indefinitely, providing, of course, everything's intact, not gone rusty and that kind of thing. Even just a generally really well-formed tins without any dents could still develop some issues, so you have to be really mindful. But nonetheless, right, let's now go through the average amount of time, okay? And again, don't take this as a gospel, because I said it all depends on the product, the tin, how you store this, that kind of thing. But as an average, if your tin is not dented, stored in a cool, nice dark place, then you have a few years on top. So I'm going to start with the longest one, and we're talking about things like processed meats, but we're talking things like a Spam, corned beef, that kind of thing, right? They will easily sit in your pantry 7 to 10 years past. Again, can't stress enough, providing it's in a cool place and your tin is not damaged. And even though, as a disclaimer, every time you open something that's a few years past date, make sure you just smell it, make sure that it looks okay, not moldy and that kind of thing. So nonetheless, 7 to 10 years on those kind of meats, and even longer. Things like soups, okay, this one here in fact is dated February 2023 and it's still okay, so it's 2 years past date. So technically, again, they should be lasting you good 2-4 years past the best before date. Right, things like a dairy or milk, evaporated milk, condensed milk, they have approximately 1 to 2 years. But again, they could last you longer, but the only thing is the texture might deteriorate. The evaporated milk, condensed milk, they might start splitting. Okay, so you might have cream to the top, liquid at the bottom, that kind of thing. It happens with the coconut milk as well, but it is natural, providing it smells okay. Right, then we have vegetables. I have a carrot in here. Again, they'll last anything good 4 or 5 years past the best before date. Again, they might become even more mushier than they already are, and you'll find that sometimes certain products like carrots or even peas lose their color. It just happens over the time. Unfortunately, peas are already kind of a bit dingy when you get them in the tin, but they will get a little bit more browner, and so would be the carrots. So next thing, guys, we got fruit. So I have the fruit salad here, but of course there are other varieties of fruits available. So generally they'll last you good 1 to 3 years past the best before date. One thing to note, okay, the higher the acid, so for example things like maybe grapefruit, mandarin slices, or even pineapple, potentially have slight reduced shelf life because of the acid inside. I found this especially with the pineapple. The longer the pineapple sat in the tin, although still be safe to consume, I've noticed that the inside of the tin sometimes gets oxidized and it becomes sort of that grey powdery thing. That means that would leach into your food. So it's very important, because believe this or not every tin seems to have a white coating on the inside or even clear coating. So technically, unless you know the brand, just be really cautious when it comes to acidic fruits. Right, next thing we've got here is tomatoes, right? So they will last, again, 1 to 3 years. I would give it an average of 2, okay? Again, they are highly acidic, although so far as I understand, or as I've tested, a lot of them do have the coating on the inside. So it doesn't seem to have the same issue like with the pineapple. But I have found that over, I think, about 2.5 years, the tomato tin started bulging. Not a lot, but might not even be noticeable. When you open it, it kind of done a bit of a hissy sound. So to me, that's a little bit of a telltale sign. Anything that hisses at you when you open it, you don't want to be consuming that. So technically, guys, I'll say 1 to 2 years, but be on the safe side, I would go with 1. If you want to have your tomatoes in the form of, longevity, I would choose to go for tomato puree, okay, because that will sit longer in the tube. Tubes are much thicker. And of course, the other alternative, guys, is to get yourself the tomato powder Not a tin tomatoes, I get it, but it will last in your shelf pretty much indefinitely. So next thing, beans. Okay, I've got here just baked beans. Any beans, guys, we're talking about will sit on your shelf 3 to 5 years. Again, even longer. The beans are generally quite robust, and though here I've got the baked beans that have been exposed to a little bit of the temperature fluctuation, that kind of thing. But nonetheless, beans are one of the things. I think if you've seen any of the survival films, like, you know, end of the world type things, generally when the people find some tins and stuff in the back of a cupboard after like 10, 15 years, I think they're generally the baked beans. So there we are. Right, next thing. Okay, we're talking about the mixed meals, if you wish. I've got here minced beef and peas, chicken and white sauce. All those kind of things are pre-mixed. Again, I give them approximately 1 to 3 years, all depending, of course, especially the creaminess, the creamy things, they won't last as long generally because there's loads more additives there, is loads more things there. But nonetheless, again, it really does depend, guys. So kind of take the advice of making sure there is no bulging, no denting, that kind of thing. But an average 1 to 3 years, that'll be that. And then the last group, we have fish. I've got tuna in here, but again, applicable to majority of the fish, really, any of the fishes. 3 to 5 years, the date. So again, the same principle, guys, apply. Tuna, where like it generally has no pull cords, especially the cheaper brands. So this is what I normally opt out for, because I know they're gonna, you know, a little bit more secure in the tin that doesn't have the pull cord. So they will sit there, as I said, to 3 to 5 years with absolutely no problem. And again, just last time to stress out, guys, even if your tin's gone past those estimated dates that I give you, okay, they still should be safe to consume, provided they're not bulging, they're not smelling, they're not moldy, and that kind of thing. You will lose nutritional value. As the time goes by, past the best before date, it will slowly start to, you know, lose its texture, that kind of thing. And I found it with a few products, they do genuinely kind of started to taste a little bit yucky. So whether they still potentially will be safe to consume, but you got to potentially, again, consider this yourself. If you're storing something for 20, 40 years, then it probably wouldn't matter. If we're desperate to the extent that we have to consume a tin that is 20 years old, then I suppose a little bit of yucky texture are not going to harm anyone. But there we are. So anyway, guys, yes, last thing to bring out. So dates are just there for a guidance, okay? They're just there to make sure that the quality stays best by. Make sure the tins are not rusty, no bulging, no denting, that kind of thing, and keep them in a cool, dry place. So there we are. So I do hope, guys, you have found this helpful. If you did, please don't forget, thumbs up, subscribe if not a subscriber. This is a preparedness channel, but I do cover a whole array of subjects that's relevant to preparedness and food, that kind of thing. So yes, please subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye.